So, can you really sleep train a baby in 3 days? Here's what happened when I tried. We have to start off with a disclaimer. I am not a professional by any means. I am not a doctor or a pediatrician. You should consult with your doctor before you decide to do any type of sleep training. So, without further ado, let's get into it. I'm Cherry, a mom of three, and here's everything you're going to want to know. So, what is sleep training? According to Google, sleep training is a process of teaching infants and young children to fall asleep and stay asleep independently. Independently is the biggest word there. Also, fall and stay asleep. You can read more on Google. There's tons of articles on there that you can find that are talking about sleep training and all the research behind it. So, I'm basically just sharing my experiences with how I trained my 5-month-old little girl how to fall asleep and stay asleep on her own within the 3 days or 3 nights in this case. Why did I decide to sleep train my baby girl at 5 months? There's a few things. The biggest thing was I was teaching her bad habits when it comes to sleep. I was feeding her with the bottle to fall asleep. I was rocking her. I was carrying her. I know that there's going to be some hate about those three things that I just named. Oh, you're rocking her, you're soothing her, you're being so good to your daughter. Hello, like, why don't you just want to do that? It was the best thing for the first 3 months. But after the first 3 months, I was done. Even though there's nothing wrong with nurturing your baby and holding them and rocking them and feeding them to sleep, I was just going crazy. We would both be stressed out when I kept rocking her and she wouldn't fall asleep right away. And then when I wanted to put her down into the bed or the crib, she would wake up within 10, 15, 20 minutes. I wouldn't be able to tend to my other kids, or I wouldn't get to shower. I wouldn't get to do the things that I needed to do. It was not ideal anymore. I've done all the contact naps and I've held my baby to sleep and enjoyed her sleeping for the first 4 months of her life. But now it is time for me to let her try to fall asleep on her own and stay asleep. At night, our sleep was always interrupted because she didn't know how to put herself back to sleep once she got up. That was our fault. The only way we would soothe her, because we're sleep deprived parents, we just wanted her to sleep right away, was with the bottle because she didn't like the pacifier. We would rock her, stand up, and walk around. Obviously, that is interrupted sleep. All of us, including my 5-month-old little girl, wasn't getting enough healthy sleep for long stretches. And I know that she could, and I know that it was possible because I've slept trained my 2 boys prior to sleep training my baby. I knew it was effective. I knew sleep training works. Basically, the reason why was so that we all wouldn't be stressed with the way she fell asleep anymore. If you didn't watch my sleep training tips video, I linked it down in the description. You can watch that and see my top 10 tips plus 2 bonus tips on how you can prepare to sleep train your baby in 3 nights. I wanted to share those tips because I have had experience 3 times and I feel like I'm kind of an expert on it now. I just wanted to help others who are wanting to sleep train their babies. If you're wondering why I chose to sleep train her at 5 months, I just wanted to teach her as soon as it was appropriate and I got the green light from the doctor. Didn't want to wait any longer. When they get older, it's harder to teach them. I slept trained my oldest at almost 3. He's autistic too, so that's a whole different story. If you want to hear that story, definitely leave it in a comment. I slept trained my second son at about 6 months. Then with my baby girl, who is my last baby, I slept trained her at 4 months, almost 5 months. Basically, she turned 5 months within the week that I was sleep training her. Homegirl is starting to roll over as soon as I did it. That too is a whole different story that I will be talking about in here. Okay, let's get into the nitty gritty and the details on how. This is how I did it. The plan was created strictly off of all the YouTube videos that I've watched from other moms and other parents and whatever tips and advice that they shared on their methods. And I just picked and choose what I wanted to do and what I didn't want to do. And then I combined them all together into this plan. This plan is basically the cry it out method. There are a lot of different methods out there. I just did the cry it out method. They cry it out until they fall asleep. And I went off of my experiences that I've had with my 2 boys prior to this one. I looked at the weekend where I knew that my husband was going to be home, where he wouldn't be working in the nighttime. There was no events going on like birthdays or I had to go run errands or anything. It's just a weekend where I was going to be stuck at home. I was fortunate enough where my husband had a later shift in the daytime. He could drop off for school because I didn't want to do car seat drives with her while I was sleep training her in that first 3 days at least, because babies tend to fall asleep in the car seat. Like the moving, it helped them doze off in the car. I didn't want that. But if you don't have that and you have to do school drop-offs, maybe the weekend might be the best time for you. Friday night, Saturday night, and Sunday night. Definitely depends on your case. But for me, I was lucky enough to have my husband do school drop-off, so I didn't have to do that. And I also chose 3 days where I knew he would be home so that I had my emotional support in the chaos partner. Once I figured out all of that and what week I wanted to do it, this was the plan, and I game plan with my husband, and I told him like multiple times so that we both could get into that right mindset. This was the routine. We would feed her first 30 to 40 minutes before we gave her a bath, so she had time to digest before she falls asleep. She has tummy issues sometimes. The second thing that we would do after feeding her is bath time. It's nice to give them a bath at the end of the day. I've always done that for my babies because even for myself, we unwind and our brain gets relaxed because we take a bath, we take a shower. A nice warm bath was the second thing in our routine that we did. The third thing we would do in the routine is playtime. So we would bring her back out into the living room and she would play with her brothers, maybe practice a little bit more tummy time, do some massages to get the gases out, and we would do the fourth thing, which is bring her into the room where she's going to sleep, which is our room because we room share. We would read a story and a book with her. And the fifth thing in our routine was put her in the swaddle, say I love you and good night, turn on the sound machine, turn off the light, walk out the door. So that was the routine that we did. Now let's talk about the process, because that is the part that everybody loves to hear. How did it go? What happened? And then what did you do when things happen? And if you're not following me on TikTok and Instagram, I shared my stories on there about how I slept trained her through the whole first 3 nights. And I shared exactly in that moment what was going on. So if you want to see that, definitely check out my TikTok and Instagram. Hey, back to the process. This is what happened. As soon as we said goodnight, love you, and we would close the door, we would turn on the monitor right away. There's a camera watching her so that we can watch her while she's trying to fall asleep. And we turn it on freaking soft because homegirl was crying. So we turn on the monitor and we monitor her. If she's distressed, she needs help because homegirl was practicing rolling over in her sleep in the like at night 3, then we would go in to help her with that. But if she was just crying bloody murder because she wanted to be held or the bottle, we would just let her cry. And we would let her cry for the longest, an hour. I know I'm going to get a lot of hate for that, but an hour at most. Then we would go in and check on her and soothe her by like an hour is the longest that we would make her cry, and only go in if she's stressed, like she couldn't roll over on her back onto her back. She was like her foot was stuck at the edge of the crib or something. But if she was just crying for us, we would let her cry it out. The biggest thing too was no picking her up. We knew not to pick her up because the whole process is to let her try to fall asleep on her own without being held or the bottle and all that stuff. One of the biggest things that we talked about was, what if she wakes up in the middle of the night? What do we do then? And we should room share too. So our plan was that if she would cry in the middle of the night again for more than an hour and she would have a hard time putting herself back to sleep, then we would go and intervene. But for that hour where she's just crying because she can't get herself to go back to sleep, we would just let her cry. Yep, we would have to endure the crying for an hour in the middle of the night, but it's okay because we're just trying to get her to fall asleep on her own. That's the whole process that we talked about and we planned out for the game plan of sleep training her in 3 days. Now I'm going to share how it went for the first 3 nights of sleep training. Night 1, I did the routine. Me and my husband both did the bath time, both changed her, fed her. We sent the other kids away to their grandparents' house so that they wouldn't be hearing her screaming at the time where we're sleep training her, just because we didn't want them to feel uncomfortable about why mommy and daddy aren't getting sister and letting her cry. Sent them to grandma and grandpa's. We did the whole routine, gave her a bottle, bath, playtime. I went into the room, I read a book. I put her down into her crib in her swaddle, turned on the sound machine, told her I love her, and then I walked out. And then when I turned on the monitor, as soon as I left the room, she was just chilling in her crib, mostly because she was confused. She was probably like, what is going on? Where did you guys go? For about 10 minutes, she was just chilling. And we knew because we watched her on that monitor. After the 10 minutes, she fussed and cried and whined as we predicted for about 40 minutes. And by like 30 minutes of crying, you could tell that she was trying to doze off and fall asleep because she would stop. Maybe like a minute would pass by and then she would cry again. She would stop, cry again. And then finally, by about 40-ish minutes, she was asleep. Night one, she did really good. We room share, so we can hear her. So there was no need for the monitor to be on, only if we needed to check on her because we sleep in complete darkness. We fussed a little bit here and there in the middle of the night and the early morning, but not to the point where we both had to get up, not to the point where I've even paid attention to how long, because I just heard her whine and fuss. Sure enough, she went back to sleep. Then a magical number. She slept for 11 hours straight without needing the bottle, without needing us to rock her. And that right there shows that she could fall asleep on her own and she could stay asleep on her own. She cried for 40 minutes, but that's it. Now we have to talk about day two. Night two is a whole different story from night one. Just a little bit of a context. I was trying to nap train her at the same time of sleep training her, and that was driving me off the cliff of wanting to continue with sleep training, at least nap training, because I shouldn't have nap trained her during the time that I was sleep training her. I was overwhelming her with so much stuff, but that's for another time. Nap time training on day two was her first day trying to snap on her own in her crib. That just made her nap day horrible. When experienced parents tell you that an overtired baby means they're not gonna sleep good in the nighttime, you better listen to them because they are right. Overtired doesn't mean your baby is going to sleep like an angel. When you're overtired, especially at that baby age, they can't rest. Their body can't rest because they're so tired from the day. Night two of sleep training, she didn't have a good nap, so I knew she was going to have a rough time for night two. And night two, we did the same thing. We did the routine, but I made my husband put her down this time so that he can get used to putting her into the crib and saying, I love you and good night and all of that stuff. But as soon as he put her down into the crib, she was not having it. She was crying and screaming, and we expected that for night two, but she fell asleep maybe within like a minute or two though after that crying and screaming, but that's because she was so exhausted. I remember that she didn't have a last nap. She was just crying and crying and crying. Basically was up for like 4 hours in her wake window, and her normal wake window is about 2 to 3 hours. We thought we were in the clear with that, but I knew she would fussing a lot and waking up in the middle of the night. Like every half hour she would wake up and cry, and she would cry for at least 10 to 15 minutes. The longest that she would cry would be like half an hour. This was constant for like 3 hours. And then by the time it became like 11 o'clock at night to 6 o'clock in the morning, she slept straight without crying and fussing. She got like a good total of 10 hours of sleep. Then for night three, we did the same routine. We did the bath, we fed her, we said goodnight and I love yous. We watched her on the monitor. She fell asleep within the first 5 minutes, only crying for a little bit. She slept straight for 11 hours. Homegirl wakes up though really early, like 5:30. If we put them to bed early, they wake up early. We put them to bed late, they wake up early. That's just the way that it goes. As I'm filming this video, it's been about 2 weeks since I slept trained her, or since I started sleep training her. She's doing great. She falls asleep on her own, able to put herself back to sleep on her own. But the biggest hurdle that we're facing is she's rolling over now. That terrifies me with her rolling over because she doesn't know how to roll back yet. So I have to go in and keep moving her, and that's like a whole different thing. If you want to know how that's going, you should check out my TikTok and my Instagram page because I talk about it more on there in full details. She's practicing rolling over right now, and it's horrible. I know that once she stops rolling over, it will be better. Ever since sleep training her for the first 3 nights and continuing on till now, she is able to put herself back to sleep on her own. Yeah. She's able to fall asleep without needing any assistance from us. Because the goal of sleep training is, Google said it best, help your baby to fall asleep and stay asleep independently. Independent. I mentioned this in my tips video. You tried the 3-day method that I did and it doesn't work. That's okay, because every baby is different, every parent is different, and you cannot expect the same results that I got. I'm just sharing what I've experienced the 3 times that I've done this. I hope that it works for you. This is just my experience. If it doesn't work for you in the 3 days, you can try again. Dedicate a week for sleep training, because I promise you, you will at least see progress. You might not see like instant progress, but you'll definitely see progress. Always going to be some kind of progress in there. You just gotta be discipline, as with everything else in life that we talk about. So, can you really sleep train a baby in 3 days? Yes, you can. And I'm so proud of my baby girl for being able to do it within 3 days. If you want to watch my top 10 tips video for sleep training, check out the link below. If you want to ask me any kind of questions you have about my sleep training method that I've done, or you're curious to know other things about how it went, definitely drop me a comment, or you can reach out to me on TikTok and Instagram, because I talk about it on there too. So if you made it this far, thank you for watching the whole thing. I appreciate you and I love you, and I will see you next time.